Hi everyone, and welcome to lecture 4. So today we're going to be talking about living without free will. And so we're going to be looking into those who've argued that living without free will wouldn't be so bad, examine those views and see if we agree that in fact living without free will wouldn't be so bad. So before we get started, I want to briefly go through the views we've considered so far. So we started off by asking the question, is free will possible? And we were given two options. The first was to say, no, free will is not possible. And that gets us impossibilism, defended by people like Galen Strawson. Now, if free will is possible, we then get a further question, is free will compatible with causal determinism? If you say yes, then you're a compatibilist. If you say no, then you're an incompatibilist. If you're an incompatibilist, you might ask, well, is determinism true? Do you think the laws of nature are deterministic? If you say yes, then you're a hard determinist. If you say no, then you might ask, well, do we have free will? If you say yes, you're a libertarian. And it's worth noting here that, as we mentioned earlier on, you could be a libertarian and a compatibilist. You might hold, as at least one person does, that free will is compatible with the truth of causal determinism, but indeterminism increases the amount of freedom we have. That's a possible view, but remember that most libertarians are in fact incompatibilists. They deny that free will is compatible with the truth of causal determinism. And if you say, no, we don't have free will, then you're a hard incompatibilist. You deny that the falsity of determinism is enough to give us free will. Like, you think that even indeterminism would rule out free will. So today we're going to be focused on these three views: impossibilism, hard determinism, and hard incompatibilism, because these are all views that affirm that we don't have free will, either because it's not possible, or because determinism is true, or because it's also incompatible with indeterminism. So Living Without Free Will is actually the name of Dirk Perboom's 2001 book. I think it's one of the classics of contemporary work on free will. He's written a lot since then, but this book still stands out. And so much of what we're going to talk about in today's lecture um, are themes that come up in the latter half of his book. An increasing amount of people have come to agree with his view and have come to defend aspects of it or developed aspects of it, but our starting point will be Perboom's work. Right. So again, we've got these views here: impossibilism, hard indeterminism, and hard incompatibilism. So Perboom himself characterizes his view as hard incompatibilism. He thinks that free will requires agent causation, but that science says that we aren't agent causes, and so we don't have free will. We don't need to stick purely to Perboom's own view, because if you're a hard determinist or impossibilist, then you're going to have you could have similar kinds of views as Perboom does about what life without free will is like. So let's turn now to the question of what would life be like if we accepted we lack free will. Let's start by considering one of the main things that might challenge, namely our conception of ourselves. So it's arguable that we see ourselves as people who cause our own actions, as agent causes, who are the ultimate originators and who have alternative possibilities every time we make a decision. So I think this is quite common. If we think back to actions we performed, we often will think, yeah, I could have done otherwise. And in particular, when we think of what other people have done and we want to blame them, we'll often think, well, they caused it. It stems from them. They're the ultimate originator, and they could have done otherwise. And that's why I'm blaming them. But if we accept we haven't got free will, then we have to deny one or more of these things. We have to deny we're agent causes. We have to deny we're ultimate originators. We have to deny that we have genuine alternative possibilities when we make a decision. The question is, can our conception of ourselves survive? Well, it seems that conception is not going to survive, but maybe there are other aspects of how we view ourselves as agents, as people who act in the world. Maybe there are other aspects of that that can survive. And Dirk Pereboom thinks that actually we can maintain quite a lot of our conception of ourselves. In particular, we can maintain our conception of ourselves as people who deliberate, who make decisions, who make choices, and who go through a process to do that. He thinks we can still see ourselves that way. The fact we lack free will doesn't actually affect that. And the idea here is that even if we don't actually have genuine alternative possibilities, we might still have epistemically open possibilities. So what does that mean? What are epistemically open possibilities? So the idea here is that you reach a fork in the road, and even if it's true, if it's the case that you're going to go one way or the other, and you can't really choose to go the other way, the fact that that's true isn't going to affect the fact that from your perspective, when you make that decision, it's going to seem open to you. You might well know that determinism is true, or that indeterminism is true, and that you don't really have free will. But from your perspective, it still seems like an open choice. Even people like Pereboom, who don't believe we have free will, it still seems open to him that he can do one thing rather than the other, even if he thinks deep down that in fact he cannot. So what does this look like? So suppose we have Simon again. He's deliberating about whether to steal or not. And he could steal or not steal. And here it's going to be the case that he steals. Let's suppose he's causally determined to steal. Even so, from his perspective, it still seems like he has a choice. So he can still be there in the position of deliberator, thinking away like, oh, yeah, I can do these things, even if he can't really. And that's the important thing here, is that he still has these epistemically open possibilities. His view of himself as a deliberator isn't going to change just because he doesn't have this genuine option to do other than he actually does. And further, just because we're causally determined or we lack free will, it doesn't mean that we don't still cause things, right? So even if you're not the ultimate originator of your actions, even if Simon, for example, isn't the ultimate originator of his action of stealing, it's still the case that he causes his action. It's still the case that his action has further ramifications in the world, and that he's part of that causal chain. So he has these beliefs, desires, and other mental states, and events involving them cause him to steal. And that then has another effect. He's still causing things. He's still effective in the world, right? And the important thing is, it's not just that he's causing things, it's his causing things as the result of his own deliberation. He's still thinking through the options. He still has this process of deliberation over time. He's thinking, should I steal? Should I not steal? Should I steal? Stealing is bad, not stealing is good. But I'll get the money, but So he's still going through this genuine process. It might be that it has a foregone conclusion that he is going to steal, but he's still going through this process. He's still deliberating, and as a result of that deliberation, he steals. So at the end, a decision is made and he steals, but he's still gone through that process, and that process has caused something. That's not taken away by him lacking free will. Him lacking free will just means that he's not the ultimate originator, or he lacks genuine alternative possibilities. That's all that means. So he's still got some role. His view of himself as an agent in the world who has effects, that still survives in a world without free will.